Hello, well, welcome to All Four United with me, John Foster, MUFC. Joining me tonight is Natalie. How you doing, Natalie?
I'm doing good, John. Happy for this, excited.
I'm excited. Yeah, well, when Stuart mentioned this to me, I think Monday or Tuesday, my eyes are kind of lit up. So, Stuart, thank you for organising this. How are you?
Yeah, very, very well, thank you. It's after a break of a few weeks with my little one being poorly and just being really busy through the day job. It's nice to get back into football a little bit, catch up with you guys.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, like I say, thank you for getting Reese on the show as well. Reese, how are you keeping, mate?
Good, thank you, John. Thank you for having me on.
No problem.
Does this make me a third party speaking to a football agent? Is that? Do I get a cut? Do I get a cut of the appearance fee?
I'll negotiate that for you, Stuart. Don't worry.
Thank you to everybody in the comments. I know a few of you were waiting before we actually went live. So 50 people watching already. Please hit the thumbs up. This is the first time that we've actually had an agent on the show. So I'm really excited. I want to know a little bit about what Reese does on a day-to-day, week-to-week kind of level, but also obviously ask him a few questions that you guys will probably want to know as well in the comments. So the plan for today's show, obviously Emma Sanders has been talking again. Whenever Emma Sanders has been talking, you know, she gets all the big scoops. Natalie, I don't know if you saw on her Twitter today, she had a bit of a chat with someone who we wanted at United, Buddy Shaw. So she's put that on Twitter today, and she's definitely putting a few good things on Twitter. So thank you to Emma for keeping us up to date with the Martha Thomas not announcement, but rumour. But I think it's a very strong and likely rumour, so we'll be talking about that. We'll also be talking about some of the Liverpool devs who looks like they're coming to United. So it'd be nice just to at least mention those names so we can look forward to those next season. One that I'm looking forward to speaking to Reese about is Mino Raiola. So if there's anybody watching this who follows the men's game, Mino Raiola is an agent who represents Paul Pogba, just to name one. So I think that's going to be a fantastic conversation there, one that I'm going to be really passionate about talking about. And of course, little did I know, but Rio Hardy is, am I right in saying that you represent Rio Hardy, Reese?
Yeah, she's been with me now for about 2.5 years.
Excellent. So we'll end the show on that one. The only reason why I'm going to talk about Rio Hardy is because she was photographed at Old Trafford literally a couple of weeks after Reese put a tweet out saying that she's coming back to England. So I think it's relevant. So Nat, let's start off with, obviously with yourself then. So obviously a busy week regarding transfers. We're seeing Arsenal making moves, Everton making moves. We're making some kind of moves, not quite at the same level. What's your thoughts, Nat?
Yeah, listen, I love Emma. If she's watching or whatever, and everyone always wants Emma on the show. When Emma comes on, the great shows. And obviously, she put a tweet out the other day that said, Martha Thomas to Man United, looking like a done deal. I remember when I think Stu was on around that time, that she announced that she was leaving West Ham. And I said, you know, it'd be a good signing. I think she's a good player. I think she's quick. I think she's fast. But I just think that we're at a point where we're watching. I mean, I wasn't like great, but you know, Arsenal have just maybe potentially, whether it's done or not, signed Nikita Paris. Obviously, we knew about Bunny Shaw going to City. I think that was one that we talked about in January that we were looking at. That we heard that there was a bit of a movement in that potentially, but obviously with the Champions League not happening, that didn't happen. And then obviously we've heard about 3 Everton deals today, and then we had Mia on, didn't we, talking about good Swedish players, and one of the players that we talked about was Anna Evergaard, and it looks like she's going to Everton as well now. And then when you add that, and then we've heard about Martha Thomas, I think people were on Twitter people think she's a good signing, but they don't want it to be the only signing, if you get what I mean. And I don't think it will be. Hopefully it's not. But let's just see what happens. I think Russo's going to be our main striker. But obviously, you know, Russo's not been fit for the whole season. So you do need backup. And I think Martha is going to be like an upgrade in terms of maybe the ones that are going to go. She will hopefully score a lot more goals. And hopefully she'll stay fit as well. Because I think when I first saw her at West Ham, I thought, oh, yeah, she's good. But, you know, this season she's not played, you know, a load of games, and I think that's gonna if she can, stay fit, playing around better players, hopefully she can get a lot more goals. But, I think it's just with what's happened with us. We've heard about this, we've heard about that. Casey left, we've heard about the training ground, and I just think it's like that snowball effect now, and everyone's just sort of waiting for the big kind of, the Tobins, the Kristens, the this, the that, and you're seeing them all go City and this and that, and, that's what's led to people feeling a bit upset. I'm excited about the devs, though, and I know we're going to come on to that, but those players look good. I'm not saying I love to watch the under-21s. Everyone knows that about me, and don't expect any of them to, jump straight into the first team, but a few of them have made Liverpool debuts in the Championship. So for me, a lot of them play international football already. So I'm really, really excited for them. And yeah, Martha Thomas, fans are like, yeah, let's see. So whereas I think when it's like Tobin and Alessia, people are like, bam, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and that's that pressure. Whereas Martha, I think she's going to come in with no pressure. It's going to be there's not going to be like this massive expectation. There's going to be an expectation because it's Man United, but it's not going to be, well, we're expecting you to score all our goals, now go out and do it. It's going to be, we'll just go out and do what you do best and win the hearts and minds kind of thing. So she might prefer that. Who knows? But yeah, that's what I think the feeling is like anyway, that I've seen on Twitter, that I've spoke to, that we've had in chats. It's just a case of, okay, now what's next? And I think the fact we've not heard anything, then that leads to more frustration.
Yeah, look, I'll introduce Reece shortly, and I'll hear Stuart's opinion on Martha Thomas as well, because I know you probably watched her more than me and Nat. But I just want to kind of reiterate a little bit what Natalie's saying, because I kind of agree. I think it looks like that we're going to lose 4 strikers at the moment. Not all 4 strikers that we bring in are going to be at a world-class level. For myself, I think if Russo is a starter next season, great. If you can have someone competing alongside her with international experience, someone who could potentially get all those goals that we were lacking last season, then great. And then we still then got spots for another 2 squad players or cup players or players who could come in the second half, and even a bit of route to promote to Dev as well. So for me, I think it's not such a bad move, but I do still want at least one of the 4 strikers to be replaced by someone who's already proven, someone who can play in Europe or who's at that level, because obviously that's the level that we want to get to. So yeah, look, I'm seeing positive things, I'm seeing a few negative things, but I think because the names who are being spoken about are the squad players more than the international players at the moment, or the first 11, I think there's a bit of negativity. If it was the other way around and we was getting the higher profile names being branded around first, and then it wouldn't be too bad. So I kind of see it is a bit frustrating at times, but it's done. Let's judge it come August, September. That's probably what I would say. Go for Stuart first, then, mate. Stuart, your thoughts on Martha Thomas?
Should be a very, very good signing. She's a very good player. She offers. She's a proper forward. She can score with her right foot, left foot. She can play in behind the striker. She's good in the air. And she has suffered with injuries. I've got the stats in front of me, and in the 3 years she's been at West Ham, there's only been 26 appearances. There's only 8 goals, and 3 of them were in one game against Reading this year. But I would argue that performance kept West Ham up. No one expected them to beat Reading, but to have 3 first-half goals, it changed the whole course of West Ham's season. Had it not been, it's a team game, don't get me wrong, but had she not had that stellar performance, there wouldn't have been that victory, because we all know that West Ham struggle for goals. So if she didn't do it, there was nobody else that was going to do it. And I think when you look at a Scotland record, she's got 4 goals, 8 games, but that's in the last couple of years. That's in sort of about the last 2 years. So then you ask yourself, why hasn't she been playing a bit more? So there were clearly going to be a few concerns about fitness, because the information that I'm told is that it's not that she wanted to leave West Ham, it's that they didn't offer her a contract. So that's rumours. So take that with a pinch of salt there. But you're right, she's not going to go straight into the first team over Alicia Russo, but I think she's going to offer more goals than you would have from Jane Ross. Slightly different player from Jess Sigsworth, but still a player that works just as hard. So can offer value there. And I think also she's a player that if you give her chances, she'll score. There's an argument that 8 goals and 26 appearances for West Ham probably more of an indictment to West Ham than it is to Martha Thomas. And I think if you've got a side that can give her sort of 3 or 4 good chances a game, then I see no reason why she should be getting minimum over 10 goals. But I'd be looking at over 15 goals over the course of the season, easily.
Well, that's interesting, because I know we were speaking on text before we started the show, Stuart, about scoring 4 goals last season. But obviously that was it in a team that was struggling. We had like Preston Heath, who both scored 4 goals for us last season in a team that was top of the league for half of the season. It just goes to show that, you know, if you can get the chances, then hopefully some players will put them away, and that's what we're lacking. We're missing players who we are creating chances, but we are missing that criticalness, and maybe she can come to us and find the onion bag, as Ben always likes to say on the show. So let's move on to Reese. Reese, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate you coming on. For anybody who doesn't know you, Reese, first of all, where can people find you? And second of all, what's your day job?
Where can people find me? Good question. I'm on Twitter and Instagram. I don't know the handles, so hopefully one of you 3 can help me out.
Yeah, we'll tag you on that one. Absolutely.
In terms of my day job, I own a company called Next Gen Sports Solutions. We represent just over 70 female footballers across the Championship, the Super League, the National League, La Liga, the Bundesliga. Okay. Basically all across Europe we operate, and we represent just over 10 staff members, including head coaches, managers, assistant managers, and general managers. So we basically like the cogs that keep women's football ticking over in the operations that we work in.
That's interesting. I didn't realise that you had like so many players involved. So that's called Next Gen. Is that correct? Next Gen Sports. Next Gen Sports Solutions. That's right. Okay, and so is it like a number of agents who work at Next Gen, or how does it kind of work? Do you all like represent like say 15 players each, or do you all work together to represent? We have a management team of 3 people, which is sort of headed up by myself, and then we have an infrastructure behind, which, in my opinion, is unparalleled within women's football. So we have a PR department, we have a production department where we can create the public releases and the production off the back of our clients. We have our marketing department, our legal department, our finance department, everything that we offer as a sports management company. And I think that's the key word in this. We're not an agency, we're a sports management company, and everything that we offer is what players need and want. That's great. And there's a lovely comment on screen. Thank you. I know that you watch a lot of the shows, mate, so thank you for joining in and putting that message on screen. So what's your week like then? Obviously, I'm guessing it's a busy time at the moment. Would it be the transfer window, or would you say that a lot of the deals are usually kind of already done before the transfer window hits, and it's just dotting the I's and crossing the T's, or what's it like at the moment during the transfer window? Yeah, pretty much. I think anything from, I would say, January is when deals start to get done for the summer. In terms of agreed terms, what packages will look like, what players are of interest to clubs. As we get to sort of March, April time, things start to speed up. Once the transfer window opens, we're hopefully at a stage where we can, like you say, just dot the I's and cross the T's and submit the paperwork and get the announcements out there. So a lot of our work is done outside of a transfer window. And I think that's the common misconception of football, where we sort of just pop up 3 months of the year and start charging people random fees. And I can promise you, if that was the case, I'd have 10 staff members all sat on the beach for 9 months. I'm really glad you said that. And that's obviously coming on this, because we've been hearing a lot recently with Casey Stoney leaving.
Listening. Sorry.
Nothing's getting done or anything at the moment because we've got no manager. Now, obviously, we had a manager back in January. We had a manager in February, March, April, May, part of May. So I guess the fact that we're currently managerless, at least, nothing's been announced at least, would that kind of, should we kind of be worried that we haven't got a manager during the transfer window, or do you think that go on, Reece? No, I think I don't want to speak on behalf of Casey on this, but I think I can speak on behalf of a few managers in women's football where they maybe don't have as much influence over player recruitment as what people think, and maybe a lot of that is done by sporting directors or general managers or whatever infrastructure that a club has. So the fact that there's no manager in place, I mean, look at the turnover of managers this summer. At one point, was there like 6 clubs across the top 2 leagues that didn't have a manager? But let me tell you, we were still doing deals with the clubs. So maybe that's a bit of an insight in terms of powers that managers have to what
fans think managers have.
I just want to jump in. For me, I think Casey did have a lot of power. Not denying anything that Reece knows or anything, but I personally think she did have a lot. But I think she planned in advance. So I think we saw with a lot of the signings, Jackie was signed in January for the summer. I think she was making chats and talking and discussing. I mean, Bo Reece, I know that's a comment that was put up there before. That's kind of a deal that I heard was close to being done, or she wanted to move to United, and there was talks, and that was in January. And she might not be here yet. She was talking about she signed a short-term deal, but that's one that I sort of know might be done. I'm not saying it is, definitely. We have to wait for the announcement, but that's something that I do know that, United work in terms of the list. I mean, it's come out in statements, and this is what it's kind of frustrating for me, John. I think when you read people saying, "Oh, we're not doing anything," and well, like Reece said, he's working with clubs that haven't got managers. Half the top two didn't have it, but then the club are putting out a statement saying the recruitment is being done through Casey. You're reading it, and then still people thinking, it might be affecting a few things. Players might not want to sign, but until they know fully. But I mean, I want to put it back on Reece. Reece, did you ever have any clients that don't want to sign for a club until they know what the manager is, or what's? Do you think that affects it that much?
I think it depends on the client, to be honest. I think it depends on the club. I think it depends on what the motivation of a player is. If for example, if they're a massive Manchester United fan, the fact that they've got no manager will never stand in their way. Again, like I say, depending on what motivation they've got, let's just say Man United was in the Champions League. If one of my clients wants to go play in the Champions League, the fact that they've got no manager is not going to stand in their way. Also, if a client's earning 30,000 and then Manchester United come and offer $250,000 a year, the fact that there's no manager won't stand in their way. So I think it depends on the client and their motivations.
That's what's stopping it. A lot of it, I think, more Champions League than not. But I don't know what do you think, Reece? Do you think Champions League is a massive factor, or for players, or do you think they would come with it if you got the ambition?
That's a good question. I actually don't know. I think the Champions League is the pinnacle of club football, and I think it's something that should be on every single footballer's bucket list. If a player doesn't want to play in the Champions League, I think, why are you playing football? Because surely you want to play football to reach the top. But like I said, I don't know if it would stop players from signing. But again, it depends on the club. It depends on the player, to be honest, and what their motivations are.
Can I come in here with a question that's probably a bit more poignant? It's all very romantic that we're talking about the players and the clubs and the love for it, but these are players that are paid relatively low full-time wages in comparison to the men's game and probably a lot of other sports that are professionalised. Reece, you've obviously got a lot of players that could play in the Championship and in the WSL. And I'm interested as to how much of a factor it is for players where they might think, I could go to the WSL and earn a full-time wage that might be a little bit more, or I might not get as much game time, or do I go down to the Championship? Or about the Championship's progression, is that now starting to become a thing of the past?
The Championship, in my opinion, is the most exciting league to watch. And I've stood by that now for 4 years. And the fact that it's now going into a more professional environment, I stand by that quote. In terms of finances, if I told you three now that I've got players in the National League that are on more money than full-time players in the Super League, would you believe me? So I don't think in women's football finances really come into effect in negotiations. I think it comes on club vision, club project, personnel, players, managers, and I think it comes down to how managers and how general managers make players feel during negotiation.
So what about accommodation then?
Yeah.
What about accommodation?
Well, in a sense of if you've got a player that's moving from Cyprus to Manchester or Coventry or London, they're obviously probably not got the... If you or I wanted to go rent a property or get a mortgage, well, it might be a little bit easier. But if you're a player that's been moving around a lot, you might find it difficult for you. It's great finding a club, but what support are the players given with regards to what their accommodation is? Because we know full well that players often sort of board together in rental properties owned by the club. And I just wondered myself, I'm sorry, I'm turning into a bit of a presenter here, guys, stepping on your toes. I wondered how much of a factor that is, and at what point in negotiations does that tend to come in, if it does at all?
I think it depends on what your interpretation of players' houses is in accommodation. If I said a player's house and the club then charges a player to live there, accommodation doesn't even come into it, because the player can go and find their own house. Half the time, even cheaper than what the club wants to charge them. If a player's relocating, then it's obviously a part of that negotiation, but it's not a deciding factor, because, like I say, some clubs, in my opinion, could probably make money, or are making money on players' accommodation. They're probably getting charged £300 a month rent and charging a player £450. Because I've been to some of the players' houses, and I think, if you think this is a valuation that you're wanting to recharge your player, you must be making some money out of this. So I don't think accommodation is a deciding factor in negotiation.
Yeah.
Okay. You did mention, Reece, that you liaise a little bit with Bundesliga and other European countries. What would you say? Do you think there's any European countries out there that are ahead of England, and what can maybe England do better, whether it be like negotiating or handling players or working with players? Is there anything that you've seen other countries do that you'd like maybe England to do?
My experience working across Europe is the UK is probably the worst one in terms of where to operate. And my perception as an agent, for example, if I'm doing a deal with a La Liga club, I can guarantee that the way that they look after me is 100 times better than a Super League club or a Championship club.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I don't know. I think whether that's a perception that the English media have built up of football agents, I don't know. But again, it's business relationships at the end of the day, and I think I'd be confident in saying that every single club that's done a deal with me knows that I'm not the most money-orientated football agent out there. I focus on development on my clients, and never once have we ever charged a club an agent's fee. And I think once a club's realised that, I think their perception of football agents change. I think, like you mentioned earlier about Mino Raiola, I think the common perception of him is he goes and earns 90 million from moving Paul Pogba from Juventus to Man United. And I think half of that is probably the media perception that they built up. Like, can you tell me any of them four parties that's actually come out and admitted that Mino Raiola has earned 90 million from this deal? No, but because the Sun and Sky Sports News say it, it must be true.
Yeah, I was want to add because you've opened and we've talked about Mino, and just from what I hear in the women's game, there's I don't say fear, but definitely people don't want Mino Raiola in the women's game. I'm 50-50, and maybe that's because, I'm a Man United fan, and if it was any other agent, I'd be probably a bit more like, yeah, let's do it. But, like you say, you hear the bad things, you hear negative press about Raiola and Man United, so I'm a bit 50-50, but I do think he does bring that hype, and I do like that hype. That's something that's why I'm so excited that you're on, Reece, because I think women's football needs the hype around it, needs eyes on it, and Mino will bring that. But like you say, he obviously is earning a lot of money from his clients, and so he should. He brings like I said, this hype. But I think that's what people in the women's game will be fearful of agents, especially someone like Mino, that they're taking the money out of the game, and there's not a lot of money in the game really in the first place. Women's game, yes, it's growing. Yes, we're seeing the TV deals, which is great. But then I think people are going to think, well, we'll see the TV deals, we'll see more agents, and then that money will just go straight into the club and out of it through the agents. I mean, if people think like that, Reece, what's your sort of, I suppose, say, comeback, or what would your perception be of that kind of, in a way?
Again, it's a media perception of agents. I think I definitely get dogs abuse on social media. Whenever I tend to work across the country, if I tell someone that I'm a football agent, they have an instant reaction towards me, and so I feel like judge me as a person just based off my job role. You mentioned there about how much agents are taking out of football. Who's come out and told people how much agents are taking out of football? Again, just because Sky Sports News are saying £600 million are being spent on agents, based on what? I mean, just one thing that I want to clarify is most agents charge a percentage of players' salaries. That percentage that we'll just use Mino Raiola and Paul Pogba as an example. Let's just say Mino Raiola's earned 20 million from Manchester United. That percentage that Raiola charges may be 15% of Pogba's salary. How do you know that Manchester United aren't paying Paul Pogba that 15%, but deducting it from Paul Pogba's salary? So it's not actually money that's going out of the game. It's actually money that Paul Pogba is paying, but just not directly. So I think the money going out of the game concept is a media perception that they like to build up of football agents. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and defend football agents because I'll openly admit there is some very, very bad ones out there. But I think what you look at when FIFA are bringing in a new reformed proposal to try and crack down on agents. FIFA don't represent players, so how can they bring in a reformed proposal of new set of rules when they've never represented a player in a transfer? And I think any football agent will tell you this. Not one member from any national association like the FA, the Scottish FA, the Spanish FA, not one staff member from UEFA or FIFA has ever been into a sports management company's office. So how do they know what we do behind the scenes? So how can they now put a new set of rules in place to govern us? And I think that's where my frustration comes in of this perception that's built up through the media is that we all walk around in camel hair coats and smoke cigars at the side of a football pitch. When in reality, we're the people that employ full-time psychologists to help our clients because they're not getting the correct treatment from their employers or their football club.
We're only halfway through this show, and I already want you to come back on again, Reece. So bear with me. We'll talk about Mino Raiola shortly, because I know obviously I didn't realise how close or how often you spoke to him. So we'll definitely start off talk about that in a bit. I just want to bring Natalie back in regarding something that we've seen on Twitter with the three devs from Liverpool coming across. So I know that this sort of break the show up a little bit. So let's just get into these Liverpool youngsters. I know that you go and watch the devs. I believe that I know that there's one attacking midfielder, one other midfielder, and I'm not too sure who the other player is. Oh,
centre back.
Was it a centre back? Okay. Now, I've read a few good things about him. One being a goal scorer, one being, I think, an under-17 captain, I believe, of England. But Nat, I don't know if you've seen much more of that or what you're thinking.
I've not seen any of them. I'm just going off people who watch them. Like I said, I go down to the devs a lot. When I say devs, Reece, I mean the under-21, the Academy League. I go and watch that a lot. So I've never seen us directly play Liverpool because it got postponed because of COVID, and then obviously behind closed doors. But you know, a lot of the players that are playing in the England youth setup are like top quality, and from what I've heard, these are the some of the best players. I think it's Hutchinson, who's the defender. I mean, I might be getting it all wrong, but Hutchinson, I think, is the centre back / right back, and we've lost a right back. Phoebe Hollins going to Temple University. Chloe Broughton is going to Iwaha University in America. I wish them the best, but you know that then we need to strengthen in defence. And if she's the under-17 captain, it's perfect kind of for me. One of the Brew, I think, is a number 8.
Yeah.
Is a number 8 again. England international, playing in the different age groups, whether it's 17s or 16s. You know, it's always good to see. And then I can't remember this.
Emma Taylor, but that's the one that I don't know anything about.
Apparently is one of the best. That's the one that I was sort of, when I asked, that was the standout one that someone said, and she's an attacking midfielder. I think that was the standout one. I think it's this one. And like I said, I think they're all brilliant. And I think I've got them in the right way. But listen, for me, strengthening your academy is where it needs to be. For me, I think, you know, in terms of our project, I think bringing in the youngsters, developing them up. Charlotte Healy, for me, is one of the best managers at that. Martin Ho as well, brilliant. So I think if this is the way we're going to do it, and then we're seeing, you know, Carrie Jones last year voted the top reserve player, made first team debuts, made a Wales debut. Who knows what she's going to do next year? Hope her and Tara sign contracts with us when they're 18. Because for me, that's what United's all about. Academy players coming through. And if we're going to mirror anything, yes, we want the Tobin of this, the Galactico kind of thing, but I'd swap a Tobin for a Tara Braun any day, because for me, it's this is what it's about. It's about having your young players in your team, and I'm excited for it. I know people will say, "Oh, but they're from Liverpool." Listen, that doesn't matter, because, like I said, Tara's from Liverpool, and she, for me, Wayne Rooney's from Everton. Yeah, so for me,
half of the original United team from the Championship from Liverpool.
Liverpool. So, yeah, I get it. I get the rivalry. But for me, these kids, I'm excited for the Devs team. And I just want to say, under 16s are coming through as well. So there are Manchester girls still coming through. Captain, I know it was on Twitter. I know Man U Women Extra shared it. 18, the captain. So for me, been at United since 5 years old. That's what I love to see. There's also, like I said, young under 16s coming up and stepping up and playing up. So it's not just going to be like Liverpool players. There are some excellent kids, and I don't know what's going to happen next year with watching it and that. But if you can, it's advertised. Yeah, definitely go and watch it, because I love watching the youth game. That's what I will say. And there's great talents, not just at Man United. Everton have some great talents. Aston Villa have really good talents. I know Chelsea do as well. But yeah, I'm excited for what Man United women development team, under 21s, I call them the Devs, are going to do next year. But you can't put too much pressure on them. You can't expect them to. And that's another thing that I've always said. Can't expect them. If they lose a game, it's not losing. It's learning. It's obviously, you'd like to see them win the youth FA Cups and all those youth kind of things. It's great, but that doesn't mean that they're then going to do it in the first team. And I just think, just let them grow and develop in their own time. And when that first team chances come through, I know that everyone will be supporting them and everyone's behind them 100% to do really well.
Can I just add one thing on that? I think I've watched Manchester United Devs maybe 5 or 6 times in the last 12 months. And for me, they're one of the best Devs teams I've ever come across. I think Charlotte Healy's a fantastic coach. I think she's got such a strong philosophy, which is nice to see from a Dev coach. I watched them a couple of weeks ago in Sheffield United in the behind closed doors game, and also
I heard about that.
And they've got a number 10, and I forgot her name. I can't remember who it is. And just such an unbelievable player. But what I'd like to see is maybe some of them transition into senior football and go and play in the Championship and trust just how good they are, because they can easily go and hold their own in the Championship.
I'm going to say that the 10 is Fran Stables. I'm going to say that. I don't know if she had long curly hair.
I don't know. Sort of long, dark, straight hair, I think, but I may be wrong on that. But what a player, whoever
might
that
be
is.
Fran.
Big player.
Yeah.
I agree.
I love watching the Devs.
I think in both the men's game and the women's game, it gets to a point, because I watched our under 23s men's team at LSV, and I see how good Garner was 2 seasons ago. Obviously not last season, because I wasn't allowed to go. Brandon Williams, great to see him come through. But everyone suddenly expects, because they've done a brilliant job in the under 23s, getting us promoted into the top flight. Everyone thinks, brilliant, get them in the first team. They'll get us the title. They'll go from third to first, and that's what I don't like. Just because they're fantastic, when you're watching them, still give them time. That they're still very young. They're still not used to playing under that much intense pressure, week in, week out, minute in, minute out, reacting to social media. As soon as they make one mistake, the whole world's against them. So I think with these Devs, I agree, or Devs, youth players, loan them out and get experience. Go on, Reece.
Can I just spin that from looking at it from a different perspective? As a Manchester United fan, would you rather go and make a mistake for a different club, or for Manchester United when they get in your first team?
No, exactly, and that's what I'm saying. So I would love to see them go out on loan. I love to see them get promoted, and I'm all for it. But then I just talk about Brandon Williams. So 2 seasons ago, he came in November time. Luke Shaw was injured, so he got the chance. He done brilliantly for about 3 months, and then all of a sudden he kind of fizzled away a little bit. And now some of the United fan base, not all of them, but some of the United fan base don't even want to see him play again. They want to either gone or sold or whatever, and I completely disagree with that, because you just haven't given him enough time. What he needs to do is what you said at Reece, is go out on loan, get some more experience, start playing some games, and then hopefully he'll come back stronger. But yeah, I'm all for a lot of moves, definitely.
No,
can I just jump in on something? Sorry, Reece, do you want to?
No, it's fine. Sorry, go.
I've heard that there's now this new thing, and I think it happened a lot. Maybe the rules have changed last year, but there was a point where you couldn't loan development players, but now I think there is a more of a push to loan players. I know Matt's probably talked about it on his Tuesday shows. I think you can loan out more players now. I don't know if the FA has changed some rules. But I know that Maria Edwards went on loan and she was voted Blackburn's best young player. I'm hearing maybe some other players might go on loan to WSL clubs. I mean, we saw Ruby Mace and Emily Murphy go to Birmingham, and that's sort of elevated their careers a bit. You know, people, you know, rather than just play, you know, might get in minutes here and there at Arsenal and Chelsea, they've gone out and done like full seasons or half seasons, and you know, Ruby May's now got to move to City. Fair play to her. What's your thoughts on the loan system, Reese? And basically in comparison to the men's team, like John saying, he's talking about all these players, and they all do go out on loan. Even Dean Henderson went out on loan. Whereas with the women's team, I don't know if there is a limit, or for me, I think there needs to be more loans, like you say, and I'd love to see it. I'd love to see them not only in a more fully professional championship. I think I'd do them a lot well, but you know, in the WSL as well.
I think there needs to be a method behind the loan deal. I think there needs to be transparency as well from all parties on what's coming out of the loan deal. I think if you look at someone like Dean Henderson, had an unbelievable season at Sheffield United. When it was then time to come back to Manchester United, Ben was unsure whether or not Man United were going to keep him after an unbelievable season. Jesse Lingard's in exactly that same position. So I think there needs to be transparency and a method behind, are you going out on loan to try and earn a new contract at Man United? Or are you going out on loan to put yourself in a shop window so that we can get rid of you in the summer? And I think there needs to be a method and a bit of a transparency, rather than just saying to a player, go out on loan, get first team minutes, and then come back and we'll see where you are. Because I think that just leaves a bit of a grey area for the player. So I think it needs transparency. Personally, I think I prefer loan deals if the player's still got 2 or 3 years left on the contract, because they know the reason why they are going out on loan. For me, someone like Jesse Lingard that's got 6 months left on his contract and going out on loan, I don't see any benefit to. I don't see as much benefit to all 3 parties.
With regards to player contracts, Reece, what is the general trend? Because we've all known that you'd be lucky to get anything more than 2 years, but are you seeing a big change in that across the levels?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're now seeing maybe a minimum of a 2-year. The clubs are now starting to work with me, which 4 years ago had an unbelievable amount of reluctance to contract young talented players, put them on a 3-year incremental contract, which clubs are now starting to buy into. And for me, that's part of the sustainability of women's football. If after 18 months they want to go, let's get a transfer fee involved. The quicker that we can retain the money in women's football, rather than sort of just expecting the handouts, we need to retain our own income. And I think that's key in sustainability for women's football. And I think now the clubs are starting to come around to that business model. So yeah, just to answer your question, I think a lot of the players now are looking at minimum 2-year contracts, and we're now seeing 3- and 4-year contracts coming into effect. It's
brilliant. It's fantastic. And the next thing that I really am quite passionate about, I've been banging the drum on this channel and our Since 71 podcast, is that there needs to be financial incentives to clubs. So there needs to be prize money for winning leagues. We won't even open that can of worms for the tier 3 down, there's just zero money in it. Because my fear is that there is going to be that monopoly of the top 2 tiers, and it's going to be a struggle for teams that don't have that Premier League backing to bridge that gap. There's obviously a handful of clubs like your Southamptons, Wolverhampton Wanderers and Ipswich, but other than that, like my hometown club Portsmouth, it's a struggle.
Absolutely. I think a lot of the finances involved in stuff like that needs to come from the FA, and I think the FA need to be strong in their stance. I think I'm not a massive fan of the application system. I mean, why can we not just decide on promotion and relegation? Why are we still working on an application system? I don't see why anyone. I mean, if you look at Huddersfield this season in the National League, you know, I think if I would have been one of their players, I would have been absolutely fuming. The fact that Vale have been sold a dream in the start of this season to say, let's go and try and get us out of the National League. And then in March, the men's club come out and say, even if you win the league, we're not supporting you, so we're not going to apply for the championship. I look at that and I just think, what's the point in even being part of it then? Because there's a ceiling from the club. But again, I think we need transparency, but I think that needs to be stronger from the governing bodies. They need, if we are doing an application, that application system to get into the leagues needs to be absolutely watertight. VFA need to be credit checking clubs. We can't have clubs going into financial difficulties in February and March. But yeah, I think a lot of that direction comes from the governing bodies and not necessarily the clubs involved.
I think you bang on.
Reece, just before we move on to your thoughts on Mino Raiola and what he can bring to women's football, do you just want to answer that question on screen just regarding LJ to Chelsea? What your thoughts on that move?
I'm wary here that I'm on a Manchester United channel. I think it's a very, very good move for her on every single basis. I think she can be close to her family. I think on a commercial aspect and on an endorsement aspect and the money that she will earn away from football, just being linked with a brother at the same club, I think it opens her up to a massive audience. So let's just say, for example, Hugo Boss. I think they'll be attracted to work with a family of two rather than individuals. And also she's actually moving up. And from a Manchester United perspective, I think it may be hard to get to grips, but you've got to understand that Chelsea are a Champions League finalist, so it's not a move down for it. For me, it should be a no-brainer.
If those 3 points I can understand it definitely. What happens if she doesn't start playing many games?
It's a long-term move, though, isn't it?
It's a long-term move.
It's a long-term move. I think it's just jumping in on that point. Reece is bang on with everything there, and I think even the most hardened Man United fans are open enough to admit that Man United are still in their relative infancy in comparison to Chelsea, and it is a good move, and it will raise her game by having to compete to get into that starting lineup. I'm a massive Erin Cuthbert fan. I think she's superb, but she doesn't play every single game. But somehow Emma Hayes seems to have that knack of keeping players happy. I've spoken to players who've been coached by her, and they say that her player management is fantastic. So if LJ isn't starting any of the first 10 games of the season, I don't think that's going to have a huge impact on whether her season is a success. I think that over the course of the whole season, I think she'll have a successful season. She'll get goals, she'll get minutes, and that over the following years it will just get better and better.
I think I'll just add one thing on that. You mentioned there about maybe game time, and I'll sort of ask you to a question now. Do you think that Lauren James has played as much for Manchester United as what she should have done in the last 2 years?
I think last year, pre-COVID, I think, yeah, because she was playing as a 9, she was down the middle, she was scoring goals. This year, no injuries. I think she came in when she did score versus Chelsea, and she actually had a little hot streak, and then got injured again. And all the injuries. I mean, we've gone over this, John, haven't we? About what happened with the injuries, about why Casey left, about all this, and I think all that around the club isn't good at the minute. And I don't know whether it is the reason why some might not or might look twice. I don't know. In terms of the whole, yes, she's doing this, she's doing that for her brother, and it's gonna blow up. I think that might then be Mino might come looking for them too, and that'll be a good move for him. Yeah. And I've always been a massive LJ fan, from day one. Watched every single game, since she signed, England games as well. And I think she was playing enough. And I am concerned that she's not going to get as much. And I know I get what Stu's saying about, well, you look at Erin Cuthbert, you look at this, but I think Lauren needs the game time because I think she's absolutely different class, but I think she needs to just get to that level, and I think she's there. And I just think if she doesn't get the minutes, I worry that she might stagnate maybe. I don't think she will, but that's just my only worry for her.
I think when you're training in an intense training environment that have, like, let's face it, Chelsea have internationals as regulars on their bench. And when you're training at that level, I think there is an argument to be said that you gain not as much as if you're playing every minute of every match, but you're going to gain a hell of a lot, even if it's not as tangible as competitive match minutes.
No, I think you're right. And looking at it again from a different aspect, and I feel it's maybe not my place to comment on this because I don't represent Lauren James, so I'm sort of commenting now as a fan of women's football. But I think if we don't know what effect it's had on her being injured this season mentally and away from football, because it is hard. And I think if she's now got the chance to move 5 hours closer to her family, I think we also have to bear that in mind as well.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it.
We're going to move on because we could talk about LJ and kind of go backwards and forwards about potentially like Leon or a loan deal or something. But we'll move on to Mino Raiola, and then we'll finish the show on Rio Hardy, Reese. So I don't know if it was yourself, Reese, or Stuart, who mentioned it to me in the chat a little bit earlier about potentially Mino Raiola coming across to the women's game. What are your thoughts on that, Reese? Where did you get that information from, or what is that kind of like a done thing, or is it just in the pipeline?
I get on really well with Mino, and I actually spoke to him this week. I'll sort of throw the question out there. Mino Raiola currently is doing a worldwide tour trying to sell Erling Haaland, where, in all honesty, he's probably going to earn £100 million over a 4-year contract for him, or a 3-year contract. Do you really think that Mino Raiola is going to come into women's football and earn 5% or 10% of someone that's on £15,000 a year? And I'm not saying Mino Raiola is not coming into football. I'm saying Mino Raiola's perception is he chases money. Mino Raiola may chase money. Then it's a waste of time coming into women's football. But that's my honest opinion. But he may come into it. He may want to tick the box in terms of women's football.
Can I just say, can he potentially see growth now that the Sky's come involved, so we can kind of see a bit more money? So I agree at the moment there's not much money, but can he see potential in women's football? And is he trying to get in there early, or would he want to get in there early before anybody else comes across?
How much money is Sky putting in over how long?
7 mil, I think.
Over what, 3 years, 2 years? He's going to earn 16 times more money than that over a 3-year contract or based off one player in men's football. But from a business perspective, if I was him, I wouldn't even waste my time coming into women's football. But again, maybe different motivations. Maybe he wants to come and tick a box in women's football. Maybe he can see the growth. But one thing that I would be confident in saying is we're probably not going to see Mino Raiola at any Championship or WSL matches.
Can I just ask a little thing about Mino as well?
Oh, okay.
And I know you said, Reese, you represent Spain and Germany, and there's news recent that's just come out. Spanish league is going fully professional. I think the German league is fully professional. I know people are talking about Juve, and he's got different clients, maybe in Italy. But Italy league is part-time, and if he has started out in Italy, a part-time league, I'm not saying there's anything wrong, and there is, obviously, Juventus take it seriously, and they have a project, they brought in Joe. And then John just talked about the growth, and do you think the fact that, I know it's not great, money chasing, but he could be the man to sort of change women's football, maybe?
Honestly, I think if he came in, I think it would be the best thing for women's football, and I think it's probably the best thing that maybe happened in the last 20 years. Because of the hype, the reputation that he's got, the controversy that he brings. Again, I'm not saying that women's football needs controversy to grow, but it needs people talking about women's football, and that is one thing that Mino Raiola will bring. Every single time that Manchester United is mentioned, Paul Pogba is mentioned, and that is because of what Mino Raiola has done for him away from the pitch. In my opinion, I think Mino Raiola is the best sports marketer in the world. Everyone knows about Erling Haaland. Every single person knows about Donnarumma, what he's going through at the minute with PSG. Every single person knows about Paul Pogba. When he represented Lukaku, everyone knew about his issues and wanting to change from Chelsea and Man United and Inter. There's one thing that you can't say about Mino Raiola, and that is that he doesn't know how to market. And I think if he comes into women's football, you will see a knock-on effect.
Go on,
The one thing that I'd like to come on in there very quickly and say is the perception I have is that he is fiercely loyal to his players. And I think that when they talked about Paul Pogba and him basically trying to look to get Paul Pogba removed just so he can earn some money, I didn't believe that to start off with. And since we've heard the rumours coming around that actually he wasn't given what he was promised, what he was missold what was actually happening at United. And I kind of imagine that he and most football agents, they look out for their players first, because we all know that a club will dump a manager and a club will dump a player. And Reece will battle for his player to make sure that she is looked after on the pitch and off the pitch. And I think that's the same for the vast majority of agents.
Absolutely. I think, again, not many people know the work that actually goes on behind the scenes. And I think if people knew half of it, and I think over the last few months, but for example, the stuff with Birmingham, different aspects at different clubs, has now started to become more public. So if that's now starting to become more public, just imagine what's not public and what happens behind the scenes. And I'll sort of leave that to your imagination. But I think over the last...
I know full well that we've spoken before in the past, and other people I've spoken to, your phone is on all the time. And I think as an agent, you have to always be contactable. And I think you're probably contacted. I can imagine a player, they might contact their parents first. And you're probably the second person to call if they're feeling upset, homesick, if they're struggling with injury. And I think that personal involvement that you will have with your player, I think is to be massively commended. And I think the fact that we've got people like yourself in the women's game and other companies around, other companies are available, is a credit to women's football, and it's to be celebrated.
Again, I think before people judge me or any other football agent, we need to understand what operation we have here. And I can't speak on behalf of all agents, because a lot of agents are self-employed one-man bands. I'm not saying they're not good agents. What I'm saying is our operation is a sports management company. So we employ full-time psychologists. We employ full-time psychologists because the clubs aren't giving the correct support system for players. If they were, I could save X amount of thousands every year employing a full-time psychologist. So the reason why we do this is because the players are not getting the correct support system. But yet the only thing that people speak about is how much money me and my colleagues are taking out of football. But yet they don't understand how much we are helping players behind the scenes. Actually, when was it, on Monday this week? One of my players phoned me at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I had to drive them from Leeds to Bournemouth to go and be with her because she was so low because of football. This is in the middle of a transfer window. Like, how many people would actually do that? I've got a 5-hour drive on my hands there. We've had players.
This is a great pitch for me then, Reece, because if you need someone that's going to be Southern based, that's only an hour's drive for me. So I'll put an application form in post.
Yeah, that's fine. Send me over your CV. We'll have a chat tomorrow. But no, I think over the last 2 or 3 months, we've had players on the phone absolutely heartbroken. We've had players. I've had one player on the phone telling me that they want to end it all, and their words. Now interpret that what you want, but this is women's football, and the players are people at the end of the day, and they need a support system around them. So I don't mind getting a bit of stick on Twitter and on Instagram, as long as I know that my clients are happy and they're safe and they have a correct support system should they need it.
This is great content, Reece. This is why I want you on, and not just the whole transfer hype, but I think you're educating people, and that's what we've always tried to do. We always, try and get different character guests on, different people on, different journalists. So it's great that we've got like someone like you who actually, I suppose it's like the hidden aspects of football, women's football, that, like you say, clubs and media will paint it in one way, and you're on here to sort of tell the reality, which is really great. And I'm really thankful that you've chosen this channel and you've come on. And like John says, we definitely want you back on. But I just want to flip it back to Mina for one last time, and then flip it to one of your clients. For me, when I joined and started watching and following Man United, and I noticed there wasn't a lot of talk about anything. So transfer window come up and we won the league, and I thought, right, what's next? Who are we doing? We're going to do this. And I heard nothing. And I had to go and chase different people down. I want to know. Messaging different people. Have you got news? And I still do it to this day. Have you got news? Have you got any news? Do it more like discreetly now because I know a lot of people and I can people will tell me things, little bits and bobs on the way. So I will sort of be semi up to date, and I'll always try and let people know, because I know then people ask me what's going on. And I think with me, like you said, you'll know. So everyone knows now what's going on with the tour with Hangland and Donna. I can't even say that guy's name, going to PSG, and Lukaku wanted to move. And I think that's what the women's game, in a way, I think is missing. And I mean, we call this show Transfer Thursdays because we just want to know. And I think this year I've seen a lot more journalists put things out. But we had a journalist sort of say, some agents, I don't know what you would say, don't know the benefit of maybe a little leak or maybe telling different things. And I just want to know from your side, how is it dealing with clubs? If you, like I see a lot of Rio, and, Rio's got a big move, and I love it. I'm seeing it, and I'm seeing her saying, I'm going to join this, and I'm going to do this, and I want to go here. And, we've heard different clubs might be involved. So what do you think of that kind of hype? And do you think see it coming more in women's football? Because I love it. I know everyone watching loves it. We do big build-ups in our shows, and I want to see it on Sky Sports. If anything, like in this, I mean, not sort of the negative side, but I want to see the hype of bang, yellow banner, so-and-so's joined this, breaking news. I love that kind of thing. That's the thing I love in football.
It needs it. It needs it. And I think in terms of journalists, there's only maybe, I would say 6 or 7 that I would work with, because they're the ones that I trust. And I know that if I say something, then, it's going on the right platforms and it's been worded in the right ways. We've worked with different journalists. So I don't think I'll work with, I can tell you now, I'll not work with again. So I think it's a two-way relationship. And I think if journalists look after us and our clients, and then I understand that women's football needs people to speak about it. I actually did another interview this morning, and we were speaking about deadline day, and that is the biggest myth in football. It's the most talked about myth in the calendar year, because I think it's a media perception of deadline days. Jim White sat there in the studio with his yellow tie on, and all the agents have got helicopters in the gardens, and they're doing tours of BM1 and BM62. And let me tell you, on deadline day, nothing happens. It's all done 2 or 3 weeks before, and on deadline day, you might get an actual signing. I've always
love the hype. You love the hype though of it. I love it. I remember watching a deadline day.
Of course, and I think a lot of deals get announced on deadline day, but in reality, they've maybe done 6 weeks before. Because deadline day gets national media, where a bog standard June the 14th doesn't. You might get 2 or 3 outlets. But deadline day, that everyone's focusing on it, because everyone takes a day off work to watch Sky Sports News for 24 hours. But let me tell you, nothing really happens on deadline day. And my perception on that is, if agents are doing business on deadline days, then they're not the best agent, because nothing.
Yeah. I want to end the show on one of your clients. But first of all, I want to read a tweet that you put out about a month ago. And literally a couple of weeks later, we see one of your clients at Old Trafford in a United shirt, I believe. So I just want to read this out, Reece. A deal in principle has been agreed for Rio Hardy to return to England next season. I've been preaching for 3 years about Rio. Now England can see just how good she is. 61 goals in 49 games, including Champions League. A top striker heading back to England. Next thing we know, we see a photo of her sitting at Old Trafford, inside Old Trafford. And Man United fans start getting a little bit excited, because we need strikers to come into our team, like we started the show, and Vix has mentioned it as well. What are your thoughts on, 1, her as a player, and 2, her potential whereabouts next season?
For me, Rio Hardy is one of the best strikers in Europe, and that's not me being biased, because that is, her track record backs that up. Personally, I think if she would have been in La Liga, or especially in the WSL for the last 2 years, she'd have been going to the Euros, or she'd been going to the Olympics, or whatever's coming up. And I feel like the fact that she'd been in the Cypriot League has actually held her back. Now, about 18 months ago, and I'm sure you'll speak to Rio at some point, me and Rio actually sat in a hotel in Cyprus about 18 months ago, and we went through about 4 offers from top Super League clubs, and a Bundesliga club and a La Liga club. And I advised her to turn all 4 offers down, because it weren't the right time to come back to England. Now you look at where women's football is now compared to where it were 2 years ago, and you look at the difference, it's now time to bring her back. I spoke to her actually last week, and I said maybe if you would have come back 18 months ago, you would have been in the Olympic squad now. But I think everyone will see next season how good Rio is.
Do you want to jump in on that one, Stu?
She's a defender, Steph. She's obviously, Reese's the one that obviously knows a lot more about it, but no, she's a defender, and a competent defender at that. And I believe she is remaining in Cyprus for at least another year herself.
Okay.
Yeah, Steph is remaining in Cyprus next season. Whether we'll see her move back in January, I think if she moves back, it'll be to a very, very good club. I feel sorry for Steph because everyone sort of focuses on Rio's numbers, and I don't want that to discourage Steph because, again, we're talking here about someone, in my opinion, that could walk into pretty much any single WSL club and hold her own and play weekly.
She's a defender, though. She's like the drummer of a band. Sadly, they're never at the forefront, but that shouldn't detract from what they do. And yeah, from what I've picked up on, I don't get to watch much of the games, but I've been, thank goodness for Google Translate websites. I've been able to catch up on a lot of match reports and read a lot of stuff from Cyprus. And yeah, they both look like good, promising players, and I think we'll see both of them. I look forward to the fixture where they both face each other, and they're both playing for WSL teams.
I'm just going to ask one last question before I go, because I think if I didn't ask this, a lot of our fans, a lot of the people watching wouldn't believe I'm doing it for them. Reese, Man United, you're on a Man United fan channel. Man United need a manager. Man United need strikers. Obviously, I know you represent Rio, and maybe that's done. Maybe it's Rio. But have you heard anything about Man United? What would you say about Man United currently, this market? How do you think our summer's going to go?
I don't think there's been as much come out of Manchester United as what I would have liked. I think it's been quite internal. I see that as a negative. I think if they're bringing in big names, which I know Manchester United's not had the best of seasons last season, but it's Manchester United, and they should, as a brand, be able to go and get the best in class. And I think the fact that we've not heard much come out of Manchester United may be a negative. I would have liked to have seen more come out publicly in terms of rumours or updates or whatever else. And I don't know.
They don't talk to anyone. Some people might say it's a good thing they get it all done behind the scenes, but I think there's a balance. I'm the opposite to Natalie. I'm not interested in the gossip. I haven't got time to stay up to date with all the gossip. But I do think, there needs to be that little bit of transparency and inclusion to the fans and inclusion to the journalists and sports writers. But yeah, it's all very, there are large walls in that little castle of Old Trafford.
Well,
no, I was going to say it's the end of the shop, and that, did you just want to finish up on that one?
I want to hear more just a bit from Reese about what he's saying about how he's saying it as a negative. And I do agree with Stu. I think we had Rich Levertion who said, no, it's a positive. Doing their business, like you say, internal. For me, I think, we need a middle ground.
Just got to do it a bit quicker.
That's what I think. And then, you're seeing these comments come up, Reese,
No, definitely. I think big transfers very, very rarely go under the radar. And I think if there were a big transfer coming into, when I say big transfer, I mean a globally recognised name and names that people recognise even if they don't follow women's football. It's very rare that them sort of moves go under the radar. I mean, you look at Sam Kerr, for example. Like, people knew 2 months before she came. You look at Lauren James. Everyone's been talking about it now for 6 weeks. Big moves very rarely fail to get traction. And maybe that's because the player is too excited and they can't sort of keep a secret. They want to tell their friends and colleagues. Maybe that gets leaked by us or we get a little bit excited and we start telling people. But it's very, very rare big transfers go under the radar.
This one.
I think it'll all be announced in the next couple of weeks. But when you put a tweet out this morning saying I was coming on the show, I sent it to Rio and I just said, "Am I allowed?" And she said, "No." So unfortunately, I can't give any exclusives. But
That's absolutely fine. We're really grateful.
Yeah.
What I can say is, I think we will see her in a red shirt next season. Wherever that is, then.
Well, Karen, who's in the comments, who alerted me to the photo, she says to me, so this is all you need to do, Reese, as a bit of advice. If ever you want a bit of hype, all you need to do is put a little red circle next to your name on Instagram or something, and then everyone will be all over it. Just tell all your clients that, it'll work.
Yeah, I think I put one on the tweet, and I think that's where it all sort of took off. That she's going to Manchester United, and but what I can say is this is probably one of the only transfers that I've been involved in. Bear in mind, I've been a football agent now for 4.5 years, where there's actually been an interest from clubs, from fan bases. I think that's unbelievable. Like, I think what women's football needs to take it to the next level, it needs someone like an Eddie Hearn type figure to go and push the promotional side of it. And I think what Manchester United fans are doing is, for me, it's probably one of the best fan bases out there. I don't think anyone comes near you. So,
well, what Reese is going to do now is he's got a group booking for the Man United Tour Museum. So he's going to take all the rest of his 69 clients all round, so they can all have their picture taken on the dugout.
But you know, Reese, I really appreciate that. I really want to thank you for saying that, because I do think this is, I think Man United fans, they get a bad rap, they get this and that, but I think we bring that hype, and like you say, just put that little red dot and bang, next minute everyone's, or just see someone follow someone on Instagram. I know we've got little people checking everything, so the minute someone follows our team, we know about it, we're talking about it, whether it starts off quiet and then we build it up. I think, like you say, there is this traction now. I'm seeing a difference in reporting from 2018 to now, and I think we're only going to see that grow. It's good for the game, and I hope with like Sky Sports and other leagues going professional, it's going to be beneficial for everyone. And if Rio ever wants to come on and chat, we can just chat a bit about Man United, and then chat about when a deal's announced, we can chat a bit about that. We're really just grateful just to talk about women's football. So, send her our way once it's done.
One thing that I can say about Rio is she's probably one of the biggest Manchester United fans that you will ever meet, and like one of the first questions you asked me were about sort of, does managers play a part? And like I say, I think for example for Rio, the fact that there's no manager plays no part in that. But yeah, I think every player is different and what their motivations are. But one thing that you can't knock the Manchester United fans for, both men's and women's, is they bring passion to the game, and that's probably one thing that's been lacking from women's football off the pitch on a commercial level.
100%. Thank you so much for coming on.
And thank you, Stu, again for organising this. We'll definitely keep in touch. Look, I really want to say goodbye to you off air as well. I don't think we've ever said that line, but thank you again. It's been a cracking show. I knew it would be. It's been great, and you've been a great guest. Thank you to everybody in the comments. We are going to go because we do try and keep it to 1 hour. But thank you to everybody, and we shall see you again soon.